Not all gay films are sunshine, lollipops and rainbows. Some of them touch on serious topics, even if it's a little bit taboo. So if you're a little bit tired of LGBTQ+ films telling you that everything will be alright in the end or that you will find true love, then I've got a list of movies especially for you. And this list is proudly brought to you by my Patreon members. Thank you for supporting me on Patreon. I am struggling a little bit over on Patreon, but I am posting regularly. So if you want to check it out, I have a link in the description of this video. But for now, let's head over towards the rainbow and follow the yellow brick road.
Follow the yellow brick road.
It's alright. Maybe we'll go to the beach next time.
Moffie is a 2019 South African biographical war romantic drama based on the autobiographical novel of the same name by Andre Cole van der Merwe.
Directed by the acclaimed filmmaker Oliver Hermanus, the film Moffie, an Afrikaans pejorative for homosexual, tells the story of a young South African man who is struggling to hide his homosexuality in the 1980s military service.
Moffie had its world premiere at the Venice International Film Festival in 2019 and received various accolades at several international film festivals until the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic disrupted cinema as we know it. For those of you who don't know, the word Moffie is a homophobic slur similar to the F word in America and was used mostly by police officials and other government officials during apartheid to emasculate men. The film is set in 1981 and follows closeted teen Nicholas van der Swart, who, like all white South African males over 16, was forced to undergo 2 years of compulsory military service. 1980's apartheid army wasn't for the weak and was considered torture by many, especially gay men who couldn't legally be gay back then. Nicholas finds solace with another recruit called Dylan, but their tender relationship becomes as dangerous for them both as enemy fire, as homosexuality was considered a crime which could land them in Ward 22, a notorious medical torture program within the army aimed at curing homosexual soldiers. Critics and audiences agreed that Moffie was one of the best gay movies of the year, if not one of the best movies overall of the year. Variety called it a brutal but radiant queer war film from South Africa, while The Hollywood Reporter called it tough to watch, but its harshness is mitigated by moments of aching tenderness and desire.
Looking at our parents' generation in particular who were involved in the army and interrogating that and having a conversation with them. So I think that is probably the most healing part of the film as well, because we are able to keep discussing that toxic masculinity, that sort of prejudiceness and also ignorance that mainly men have.
Norman, is that you?
Dad, what are you doing in town?
Norman used to be the all-American boy. Now he has purple drapes.
Fabulous!
I'm warning you, I don't want to hear that word from your mouth.
Norman, is that you?
Norman, Is That You? From 1976 is built around a family crisis that is still fairly rare in mainstream comedy. Ben learns that his son Norman is gay. In the film version, Ben travels to Los Angeles after his marriage collapses, hoping for comfort, only to find Norman living with Garson, a flamboyant roommate who becomes the movie's loudest comedic presence.
Hurry, Garson. My dad's downstairs. You gotta get dressed and get out of here. He doesn't know about us.
Ben reacts with panic and tries to fix his son, even going so far as to arrange a woman to tempt him. But the story eventually bends towards awkward acceptance and family reconciliation. It is a very 1970s time capsule, warm in intention, broad in execution, and wrapped in a sitcom sheen that feels both nostalgic and very dated. When the film came out, critics were mostly unimpressed, even if some gave it credit for trying to be progressive. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars and said the movie leaned hard on stereotypes, especially through Garson, while later summaries of the 1976 reception noted that the New York Times dismissed it as a string of bad jokes, especially homophobic jokes. Variety found it uneven and the Los Angeles Times thought it played like TV. At the same time, its place in film history is hard to ignore. It was one of the first mainstream films to feature a black gay character, and it arrived after earlier gay-themed films that often framed homosexuality as secrecy or tragic, and before most respectful titles such as Sunday Bloody Sunday and That Certain Summer. In a sense, it was a rough step forward, even though it was not a polished victory. By 2026, Norman, Is That You? Feels less like a dated classic and more like a cultural artifact that captures how limited mainstream understanding of gay lives once was. Its biggest issue is not simply that it reflects its own time, but that it relies so heavily on shorthand instead of character depth. Norman himself is more of an idea than a fully realized person, and Garson's exaggerated mannerisms are played for constant laughs in a way that reduces him to a collection of stereotypes rather than a believable human being.
What do you like, stripes or flowers? Huh? The sheets. I have a theory, if you sleep pretty, you wake up pretty.
Even when the film attempts warmth, it frames acceptance as something granted only after confusion, panic, and attempts at correction, which now reads as emotionally simplistic. Thankfully, modern LGBTQ+ storytelling has moved in a different direction, favoring specificity over generalization. Films and series in recent years tend to treat sexuality as part of the character's identity rather than the entire source of conflict or comedy. Norman Is That You struggles to connect beyond its historical interest. The central conflict, parents adjusting to the child's sexuality, remains definitely relatable in some way, but the framing feels boxed in by the assumptions of its era. It is most valuable today as a reminder of how far representation has come and how much storytelling has shifted from caricature towards lived experiences. Cola de Mona, or also known as Monkey Tale, is a 2018 Chilean thriller drama set on Christmas Eve in 1986 in Santiago. Borja, a teenager with an intense love of film, is trapped at a family gathering where heat is oppressive, the drinks are overflowing, and everyone is carrying more emotional baggage than the holiday table can politely hold. What begins as a seemingly ordinary celebration gradually turns into a pressure cooker of awkwardness, desire, and long-buried tension. Director Alberto Fugué frames the whole thing like a memory that has been sharpened by obsession, shame, and the kind of teenage curiosity that can accidentally detonate an entire household. Upon its release, the critical response was small but pointed. Rotten Tomatoes currently lists only 2 critic reviews, which tells you that this was more of a festival and cult conversation than a mainstream launch, and the reactions themselves were kind of mixed, with one reviewer praising the film as a portrait of people caught between freedom and repression, and the other one admiring the shock value. Director Alberto Fugué's own commentary helped frame the debate. He described the film as a genre piece about male intimacy, not a moral sermon, and he said that the title deliberately plays with a Chilean term that can also be read as a homophobic slur. That double meaning is the closest thing the film has to a controversy, but it's also built to make discomfort part of the conversation. What makes this film fascinating is that it refuses to behave politely. It does not stop every 5 minutes to explain itself or reassure the audience who is the good person and who is the bad people. Instead, it throws you into an atmosphere of lust, anxiety, shame, and the curiosity that lets you sit there uncomfortably. That is precisely why it feels so authentic. For many gay men, especially those raised in a conservative household or environment, especially ones where sexuality had to stay hidden, the film captures a very specific emotional chaos. Every glance feels loaded. Every hallway suddenly feels like a secret waiting to explode. The Christmas setting makes all of this even better. Holiday films are usually about warmth, reconciliation, and forced cheerfulness, but Monkey Tale turns Christmas Eve into a sweaty emotional minefield. The decorations glow with tensions quietly boiling underneath. Visually, the film is gorgeous in a deeply sensual way. Fugué shoots bodies, rooms, sweat, cigarettes, and lingering eye contact with the fascination of somebody remembering adolescence in fragments. It feels nostalgic without becoming sentimental. There's a dreamlike quality to the cinematography that makes the entire film feel half memory, half confession. Most importantly, Monkey Tale deserves bucket list status because it represents a side of gay cinema that often gets overlooked. Not every queer story needs to be inspirational, tragic, or politically educational. Sometimes a gay film can simply be moody, provocative, erotic, funny, uncomfortable, and emotionally reckless. Monkey Tale embraces all of these things. It is a cinematic equivalent of uncovering an old family secret in the middle of a Christmas party and realizing the truth was sitting in plain sight the entire time.
Somos parecidos. Somos hermanos. Y nos gusta el pico. ¿Cuántos años tienes? ¿26?
Ya casi 33, padre.
Virgen Santísima. Ahora mira.
Saltwater marks a feature debut of Colombian filmmaker Steven Morales Pineda. Though its premise is unsettling, there's an unexpected tenderness beneath the tension. The story unfolds in a serene coastal town where we meet Jacobo, a young yoga instructor navigating adulthood, love, and his own shadowy past, because he is still haunted by his childhood trauma of being abused by a priest. When the priest is accused of molestation, Jacobo decides to confront him, not for revenge, but in search of something more elusive: closure. When they finally reunite, it's uncomfortable, painful, but also human. Both are forced to face the aftershocks. Love tangled with guilt, power tangled with desire, and faith tested from both sides. Saltwater debuted in the US at the Miami Film Festival and earned praise for its compassionate, honest take on a taboo drama. If you're drawn to films that weave emotional complexity with intimate storytelling, Saltwater is essential viewing, and depending on your location, it's available on Amazon or Apple TV to rent or purchase. Chant D'Amour from 1950 is Jean Genet's only film, and it is a wordless black and white prison fantasy built almost entirely around male longing. Two inmates, separated by walls and watched by a prison guard, try to connect through tiny acts of desire: glances, cigarette smoke, flowers, and hand signals. The film lingers on bodies rather than dialogue, turning armpits, hands, thighs, and bare skin into the real language of the story. What happens here is not romance in the polite modern sense. It is desire under surveillance, intimacy blocked by power, and attraction made all the more intense because it must stay hidden. When this film came out in 1950, it was definitely explosive material. The film's explicit homoeroticism, nudity, masturbation scenes, and the prison setting made it deeply offensive to censors and widely provocative to everyone else. It was banned from public exhibition in France on release, and screenings remained sporadic and often cut for years afterwards. A 1954 public showing reportedly used expurgated scenes, and later accounts say that the film was banned in France and then beyond as well. That kind of history is exactly why the movie became a legend. It was not just seen as naughty, but it was seen as defiant. Genet was already known as a writer of scandalous, socially combative work, so the film arrived with a reputation for trouble baked inside. Even the fact that the film survived nearly 70 years later definitely feels rebellious. So the question is, does this film still hold up in 2026? And should you watch it in 2026? Well, yes. It holds up not because it feels contemporary in a polished mainstream way. It holds up because it remains fearless. Genet's film is spare, sensuous, and unnervingly honest about how desire operates when it's trapped by shame, authority, and of course loneliness. It also feels like a relic from another cinematic universe, one where gay desire had to be smuggled through symbols, shadows, and texture instead of spoken aloud. Exactly how gay men had to survive back then. Modern LGBTQ+ representation has improved enormously in quantity and of course in range. GLAAD's 2024-2025 report counted 489 LGBTQ characters across US broadcast, cable, and streaming. But representation is not just about numbers, it is about texture, specificity, and courage. Back in 1950, Genet had none of today's safety nets, yet he made something tender, severe, and strangely beautiful. Every gay man should watch this film before he dies because it's a reminder of where somatic desire came from. Not from approval, but from refusal. It's a time capsule, a provocation, and a landmark film that still has the nerve to feel alive. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I've got a similar video that you might want to check out next. It is the top 10 gay movies of the past 100 years. You can watch the video next by clicking on the link that should be popping up somewhere in this vicinity. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. It seems like something small to you, but it means a lot to me and it helps my channel to grow. Once again, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, also remember to come back tomorrow and check out the kind of gay stuff that I found on social media.